Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Siebert. It's time for the tropical forecast. Of course, we're going to spend most of our time today talking about Hurricane Ida. Now, as of 4 o'clock on Sunday, winds are still at 130 miles per hour, so it is still a Category 4 storm, moving to the northwest at 10. So at the current forecast, of course, the winds are going to be the issue, but over the next 24 hours, it's going to quickly turn from not being a windstorm to being a rain and a flood storm that we're going to be talking about for some time. But at the moment, in southeastern Louisiana, it is still a very, very strong windstorm. So let's take a look at it. So here's a look at the satellite imagery, and we've got enhanced imagery. So anywhere where you see the darkest red, that is where you have the strongest, deepest convection. It's actually the tallest part of the storm as well. And you can see a very well-defined eye. I mean, literally can see straight down to the ground, and it's been that way for quite some time. And when you have that eye, that also tells you a couple of things. One, that the circulation is extremely strong. The storm is strong. It's robust, and it's going to last for a while. Now, once, of course, it gets away from the ocean, it'll start to break down because the ocean, that evaporation coming off of the ocean is what feeds it, and it'll be cut off. But in the meantime, we got winds on the outer edges. Now, this is what's interesting too. When you have a storm like this, it's got a Cat 4, tight circulation, winds at 140 miles an hour, but the winds at 140 miles per hour are right in that little area of red around the storm. And once you get away from the storm, it's not nearly as windy because it's how it's made up. In order to make the wind that strong, it's got to be that tight circulation. Now, you still have huge amounts of energy on the outer edges of this, and that's what pulls in the moisture, that pulls in those giant rain bands. But the wind, that wind field is typically somewhat smaller of a wind field when you have winds like this, but it's absolutely devastating to any area that's going right underneath that eye. So New Orleans, for example, is just to the northeast of it. That's why the winds there have been more about the 80 to 100 miles per hour, which again, that's massive, but that's different than 140 miles per hour. So as we look at this picture, I wanted to kind of show you how it's impacting us here in southeast Texas. So the spin is there. Now, and notice what's really interesting too, the tight circulation, the size of the storm, you get to Lafayette and you're hardly getting any rain. You get to Lake Charles and it's clear. So for the most part, they got a few little outer rain bands are getting there, but they're not seeing the part of the hurricane like the eastern half of the state is. So very different for them. And then for us, because of the circulation, the giant circulation around this counterclockwise, we've got a northeast wind. It's been a beautiful day in southeast Texas. Gorgeous. Sunny, not quite as humid, 95 since it's been on the hot side. The only problem we've had is along the coast. Small craft advisories until 4 a.m. on Monday, and then rip currents along the coast. So when you have a big storm like this, just think of it as a giant bulldozer pushing this way, and that's why the storm surge, which we'll talk about in a second, the worst of it is over here where the wind is blowing. We don't have that, but it also sends waves, ripples, if you want to say, and it pushes all of that all across the Gulf. And so that's what we've been getting. And when you have those waves, they come up onto the ocean, from the ocean to the shore, it has nowhere to go. So, but the water then eventually does get forced back, and that's why you get those rip currents. It will be in this small little pocket of it going the opposite direction of the rest of the water. So that's what we've got going on here. Beyond that, beautiful weather for southeast Texas. So let's come and take a look at the whole thing. So as of 4 o'clock today, winds are at 130 miles per hour, still a Category 4 storm, moving to the northwest at 10 miles per hour. The pressure is still really low, 938 millibars. And as we look at the forecast, by later tonight should drop down to Category 1, but it's going to take until tomorrow afternoon before it becomes a tropical storm, and still is a tropical depression as it heads across Tennessee, going into Kentucky, into the West Virginia, into Virginia. So this thing it's going to last. It's going to hold on to a lot of that energy as it moves onshore. And again, because when you have winds so fast, it's going to take a while for that to dial down, and all of these areas are going to be dealing with very heavy amounts of rainfall as the hurricane will take its tropical climate with it. So again, as far as the size of the storm, because the wind field is going to be a little bit more compact. For example, your normal average hurricane is going to be about 100 miles across, which was about what this is. Hurricane Ike, which a lot of us will remember, that was 500 miles across. Now, Ike was a Category 1 to a Category 2 when it made landfall here in the Houston area, and we had a storm surge of nearly 20 feet or over 20 feet out along Galveston. This, on the other hand, which is the average size of a hurricane, of course it's stronger than most hurricanes, so it's got a bigger punch, but its storm surge is going to be affected, and its wind field is affecting how much of a storm surge we're going to see. So the hurricane warnings are not nearly as wide as you might think that they go, so it just goes right here. And once you get over to Mississippi, and it's a tropical storm warning. Once you get over to Lafayette, it's a tropical storm warning. And the hurricane warning's right here in the middle. Now, as far as storm surge, 12 to 16 feet right now. That's from now, for the last couple of hours, that's what we've been seeing here in southeastern parts of Louisiana. Of course, there's not a whole lot of people that live out there, which is probably a good thing. Now, as we get closer towards the inlet that feeds into Lake Pontchartrain, 5 to 8 feet as that water kind of swerves its way in. And then out by Pensacola, Florida, could be 3 to 5 feet. So that's the storm surge warnings. And then notice also, they've kind of inched it this way just a little bit because the way the storm is coming up. Once you get west of, from Baton Rouge, more out towards Texas and Orange and that area, not much of a problem. We'll just see elevated tides. Now, what's going to be a problem, and it continue to be a problem for the next several days, is the rainfall. So the storm is moving, but it's only moving about 10, 11 miles per hour, so it's going to take its time, and it has the ability to drop rain. The rainfall rate's like 4 inches, 5 inches per hour. So you start adding that up over, it takes several hours for it to go, then you're going to get to 15 to 20 inches of rainfall, which is what we're talking about here in the white areas. And yes, that could include New Orleans, all the way to Picayune, to Macomb, up here to the north. So the rain is going to be a huge issue. Now for us again here in Houston, we're going to see that northeast wind for the next day or so. So Monday also looks like a pretty nice day. And once you even get outside of that, the purple here, the areas of purple, that's 8 to 10 inches of rain. So from Biloxi, Picayune to Hattiesburg, Baton Rouge, it gets a little bit better on this side, of course, because that's on the back side of the storm system. Not expecting quite the stronger rain there. But even all the way towards Mobile and to Pensacola, they're in the 4 to 5 inches of rain easily over on that side of things too. So this is definitely going to be a huge rainmaker. Now we are moving to the height of hurricane season. So we've got Ida here. This is Julian, which formed earlier in the day. Not going to be much of a problem. It's already heading out to sea. Of course, you see this right off the East Coast. 10% chance of forming the next several days. But typically anything there is going to get shoved out to sea anyway, so that might be all right. And then we're tracking this next thing. It's still on Africa. This wave hasn't even made it out into the Atlantic as of yet. 30% chance for the next 2 days, 80% over the next 5 days. That's going to organize into something. Height of hurricane season doesn't get here until after the second week or so of September, and boy, oh boy, it is certainly looking like it. So that's pretty much the wrap up for now. For the next several days after Ida moves through, the Gulf of Mexico looks pretty quiet as we would expect it to be. The forecast locally, we'll see a nice day for Monday, kind of on the warm side, and then by Tuesday to Wednesday we're back into the regular type of humidity with more of those afternoon showers. And for the meantime, in New Orleans and southeastern parts of Louisiana, of course, the storm continues to just ravage that area, and it's going to take a couple of days for the whole thing to push on through. I would just suggest a couple of things. One, it's not a bad idea to pray for people in Louisiana. Two, don't plan to go there for a while. Especially after the storm. If you have evacuated to Houston and you're from Louisiana, wait a couple of days because the first responders need to be able to get in. The people that the electric companies, they need to be able to get in there first. They need to be able to start their work. And if people are trying to get back into the city, it's just going to slow them down and slow that work down as well. So a lot of patience is going to be required by a lot of people. And another thing for the folks here in the Houston area, we should be prepared because there's going to be a lot of people that need a lot of help coming in the coming days in southeastern parts and a good portion of Louisiana. So we should be prepared to help them any way we can. All right, we'll talk to you all real soon.